Hi folks, this is Kim Macleod from Indie Author World, and we're just about to enter the second phase of a 3-week lockdown here in the UK. We're based in Scotland, and I just wanted to share some of my lockdown learnings that have been coming to me, particularly in the last few days. I've struggled a wee bit with my mental well-being during this time, and for those who do know me will realise that I really love to connect with people. I mean, that's my main thing. I love to have conversations with people. So being kind of shut away at home, and even though you can use the telephone and you can use Zoom calls and video chats, that interaction and just the kind of spur of the moment stuff that used to happen hasn't. And I think that's probably what I've found most difficult. And it kind of came to me mostly yesterday about how important it was to me. Because yesterday morning, I took our dog out for a walk, as I have done, most days. Um, and whilst on the walk, I met a couple of people. We did stay 2 meters apart, but we had some conversation, and just it felt almost like a normal day. Just chat about how they were and what was going on, and heading back towards home. Some of my neighbours were out in their gardens, and again I stopped just for a few minutes to to have a bit of a chat with them, find out how they were, and we were just generally exchanging pleasantries. And one of my neighbours talking about how, some things that were going on in her family, somebody else telling me about the garden centre locally delivering plants if we wanted to get any. Um, you know, Somebody else actually just checking out were we okay for money, because she offered to give us some money if we needed it. Somebody else just kind of chatting about her grandchildren and how they were coping. And so I came back into the house with something else to talk about. And I don't think I'd ever realised how important that was. Um, those small snippets of life that we interact with somebody else just gives us an opportunity to then share that person's life a bit with somebody else that we're talking to. And it's not about gossip or passing things on, but it's but genuinely, sharing some good news or some concerns, or having something else to talk about. And it really made me reflect a lot on my word for this year. Every year I've kind of had a word or a phrase that I think is going to be important and something for me to kind of keep coming back to. And this year I chose connection. And wow, has it really been important? Um, and as we are socially distancing, that just keeping away physically from people, realizing that the social connection, though, the interaction with people is more and more and more important to us. And the longer this lockdown goes on, the more important that's becoming. I mean, we are having family quiz nights on a Saturday night, sort of family and friends, we gather together on Zoom and we have a laugh and an interaction, in much the same way that we would do if people were actually here. So it just reinforces the need for us to reach out and connect. But what it also made me think about is our business. So at Indie Authors World, we help writers who are choosing to self-publish their books to get their book out on sale. And I think it's why the people that we've worked with have always been more important to me than the stories and the books. The books are the output, and we produce great books and people are writing some really good stuff, and it's fantastic, but it's the people and the connection that has always been the driver for me. And it got me thinking about whether that's the same for other publishers. And this is not a criticism at all, but when when a publisher, a mainstream publisher, people think, oh, I've written something and I want to get it out there. The mainstream publisher's main focus is whether or not the output, so the book, is going to sell enough commercially to make it viable for them as a business proposition. And they want, I'm no doubt, publishers want to put good books out there in the world. They want to put books out there that people are going to connect with and understand and love and, and share. In the same way, so do we. I mean, the books that we're producing are really important too. But it's just made me realise that the conversations that I have with our authors, because they're not just clients, they're friends. It's about their hopes and their dreams, um, their values, and sharing a piece of their life, whether it's in fiction or whether it's their own life story, their memoir, or just their their take on the world, their gifts, sharing their experience and knowledge that can help other people. That's what I love to find out about. That's the bit that really drives me to make sure that we can actually help that person to produce the book and get it out there in the way that's going to suit them, and that it fits their hopes and dreams in the best way possible. Sometimes that means having to suggest other things to them, or give them ideas, because that's my role as the kind of publishing side, to act as a professional ear and offer some guidance. But ultimately it's about harnessing that person's hopes and dreams and taking them forward. And yesterday I had a really emotional conversation with one of our writers, that we're just about to put his book out. We've got quite a few ready to go right at this moment. And he is in a nursing home because he suffers from chronic fatigue syndrome. And his book has been a huge part of his life. It's been a huge challenge for him to produce this book. It's called We Alive. And we've talked, we've never met. I've never met this man, Seb, but we've connected in a real way over the phone and sometimes in short bursts because his energy is not great. And we've explored different ways to produce the book and get the book out there, sharing his values and message with the world. But what he called me about yesterday was that there is coronavirus in the care home that he's in. And it really made him think about what happens. Because this book is so important to him, and not in a sense of kind of literature as it is. I mean, although it's really interesting, it's an unusual way that the book's put together, but it's about him sharing his values with the world, his thoughts on coping with trauma and tragedy and difficulties, and it's written in a a almost sometimes stream of consciousness, poetry. It's a bit of philosophy. It's a hard book to try and wrestle into some sort of format. Mainstream publishers, I don't think, would ever have touched this book because you can't. It's really hard to actually, pin it on where does it sit in a bookshelf. But it is Seb's. It's his life work, and he was sitting there, seriously contemplating that at the moment he's well, but if he gets coronavirus, he might not survive it. And, we had a real emotional chat because he wanted to ask if I would be the guardian for his book, really, if we would make sure that his book got out there. He will hopefully have a book in his hand next week. I mean, that was our intention. It was going to be launched on the 1st of May, and, we've been juggling lots of things at the moment here, but he's, hopefully he'll have his book in his hand next week. But it was a realisation that this isn't the first time that we've dealt with this, and we've put out books before. A wonderful lady, Michelle Miller-Allen, big shout out to her. Huge part of our lives early on, when we just started, before Indie Authors was even before it was a business, it was an idea. that came from Sinclair's books and him loving, writing, and as just saying, other people could do this too. And we gathered a group of people, and Michelle, a brilliantly gifted, talented lady, American woman, full of enthusiasm, came to our meetup group, and realised that she could get her book that she'd been writing out there in the world. And sadly, though, Michelle went into hospital for a fairly routine operation, and developed sepsis, had from complications from that, and sadly passed away. And her life was just cut short in the midst of us about to get her book out there. And this was before Indie Authors World existed. We weren't running, we were teaching people how to do it. So she was doing a lot of this herself. She had left instructions to ask if we would put that book out for her. She had some premonition that potentially she wasn't going to survive this operation, and had left some notes. And we did, and with our friends, we celebrated her life with the launch of that book. And we've also then worked with others who've we've put one book out for a chap called Stuart McPherson, and his wife, his widow, should I say. Stuart passed away a couple of years ago, and Yun Sun had contacted us because she'd found that the books that he'd been working on and wanted them to get their way out in the world. His Passion for Quotes book came out last year. We're just about to put out a Passion for Vincent, which is an amazing lifetime's work that he did, because he had a real passion for Vincent van Gogh and had researched and gone to France and walked in his footsteps and taken photographs of how places existed that he had painted, and just and gathered all of that information, and it was all typed. It was in physical typed format with photographs and pictures of photographs of the paintings that Van Gogh had done, and pictures that he had taken, and it came to us in a bundle of papers that we knew this wasn't just about putting a book together. This was this was a memory. This was a legacy for Stuart, and so important to Yun Sun and his family, that what Stuart never managed to do in his own lifetime still came out and became part of that. We also did that fairly recently for one of our dear friends and authors, Eddie Judy, whose son Paul had passed away to cancer. And Eddie discovered that Paul had written a book called The Big C in Me, about his cancer story. And again, we managed to take Paul's work, and Paul had done a whole lot of, he'd written it beautifully, and there's humour in it, and it's just, and he had designed a cover, and so we managed to take what he had done, and get that book out there, and get Eddie a copy of it in time for Paul's 50th birthday. A life cut way too short. And that again was a very emotional phone call that I had with Eddie that day when he said thank you, because we'd sent him some words. We know what it's like to lose people. We know what it's like to lose people too soon. And I'm sorry for getting emotional, but it is about it's words are so important, and stories are important, but it's about the people. It's about the people behind the stories. It's why Sinclair's book started to sell, because people found out that he had started to write or finished writing and just got a book out there because Calum had died, because our son passed away from meningitis, and that was the spur for him to go on and finish a book that he'd always wanted to do. But and just to get the books out there and write his crime fiction books, and they're fabulous. They're really, really good books, but people connected with him and the story because of how the books had come about. And that's why Indie Authors exists, because we've developed from helping people who got to know us for Sinclair's books, from the conversations that we've had for these other people that we've worked with. And I suppose because we care so much, and I really, really love connecting with people. That's my passion, and that's where we've come from. So I just wanted to say to you out there, you might not want to write a book, but share your stories. Take time to hear other people's stories. You know, whether that's 2 minutes in the street with a neighbour, even 2 meters apart, or over the garden fence, or you know, just with your family, even over a telephone conversation. Get to know them. You know, have the conversations that um, that you wish that you knew and understood. That you hear the history and the, you know, laugh about it. You know, share the moments of what's happened in your past, about your values, about your beliefs, about the funny stuff that's happened. Maybe write it down. You know, because I mean, I keep a journal. I've kept journals for years. And I've written lots of stuff. You know, sometimes it's just wee snippets of things. I started writing to Calum after he died as a way to cope. And those that writing has made a huge difference to me. I believe I then have communication back, whether it's from Calum or whether it's from the universe in general. And I'm going to be brave and share some of that that's come out recently as well. I've been encouraged by a good friend, Andrea Gardner, to share some stuff that's also come to me almost in another voice talking and sharing stuff. But I think it's the, you know, just writing and capturing this down means that it is recorded. So whether it's written or whether you record it in audio form. We sadly lost my mum just in August last year to cancer. Wonderful, wonderful woman. We had lots of great times, lots of shared stories, laughter. You know, our family, we laughed all the time, and everybody would love, you know, Sinclair and Mark, my brother-in-law, would say when we got together, they would just go, well, here we are, because my sister and Linda and my mum and I would start reminiscing and talking about our stories and tell the same stories over and over again, but we would laugh. So those stories are real and live and there. And before, when we knew my mum was really ill, I asked her, could I record some of this with her, just as having these conversations, so that I also had her voice, because I could hear her voice. And that was quite hard, but it was so wonderful. And I've listened to that a couple of times to hear us talking about those family stories and laughing and sharing about them. So as well as me writing them down, I've got them recorded, because they are glimpses of my past, my history, our family, and they'll go forward to to you know, just to Kirsten, to other family and friends. It, we all have an impact and a footprint while we're here. Um, and this coronavirus is seeing that people are just suddenly being whipped out of our lives in huge numbers. It's not only coronavirus that does that. You know, my mother-in-law was knocked down and killed, and you know, in a car accident, you know, just by a car, instantly gone from our lives when Calum was just a baby. Um, you know, we've lost other members of the family to cancer and other illnesses. You know, we had Calum suddenly whipped from us at the age of, you know, almost 13 to meningitis. These things happen all the time. None of us are guaranteed tomorrow. But what's happening just now, and the volume and the huge focus on the fact that we might die. You know, people are researching wills and looking about how they protect themselves, or how they handle their affairs and they leave their legacy. But what it's doing is opening up conversations, real wonderful conversations about life and what's important, and people are being really kind and connecting. And I just want you to do that. You know, think about that, have those connections, make sure that you share your values and gifts and stories with your immediate people, or maybe with the world. You know, for some of you that might be about writing it into a book. But whatever way, it's about leaving your legacy somewhere. We've we've developed Calum's legacy. We, said from the very start of writing the book that Sinclair did, to me writing my book, From Heartbreak to Happiness, and sharing that story, we wanted to do something bigger. Indie Author's World obviously was inspired by it, but we wanted to make sure that we were going to help some other young people. It's a huge passion for us as well, about encouraging our young people to be creative and to share their gifts with the world. And we'll need it more than ever now. We need our young people to realise that they can still have an influence, and they've got a future, because there's so many of them really worried and concerned about what's going to happen. Our daughter's 20, and I know that her and her friends are concerned about where the world's going to go. But with Calum's legacy, we're working with some young people to help them write their stories. It was about using their imagination and being creative. And we've got some wonderful writers in there. We've got some who have got great imaginations, and we're trying to wrestle their stories into something that they can share. But you know what has been more heartwarming than anything else has been the connection those young people have made with each other. Come from all different backgrounds, walks of life, experiences, challenges, and they are sharing in a real honest way with each other about their lives. They're writing stuff that's about their lives. They're encouraging and supporting each other. They're now just started. So if you follow them on, we've got the Instagram, Calum's Legacy on Instagram is now those young people kind of starting to really share stuff out there. Big shout out to them, because they are amazing. And what that has done for me and my heart, boy, it is so amazing to see Calum's legacy, Calum's impact continuing with it. The book will be out, later on in the year, that we're compiling with all their stories. And that's going to be fantastic. But when we set up Calum's legacy, it was first and foremost for us to help those young people have confidence, to realise they could be creative, to to join forces, to have fun and connect, because that's what Calum was. Calum was such a connector. He loved having people around him. Maybe a chip off the old block, just the connection with people. And for Sinclair and I, that was what we wanted more than anything, was to see some of that. And it's happened. And last week, one of the young people, James, posted a wee message to me before we're now meeting weekly on Zoom, doing a kind of weekly check-in. And before the call, he posted something and said, I wish that I'd met Calum. But he's so grateful for him, because his legacy is living on, and that he hopes that they were making him proud. Oh, just these messages are so important. So what, if just the learning for me is connection. It is so important. My connection with whoever's going to watch this, I hope it has some impact for you. I hope that you're able to then go and have some chats with go and have a chat with the people that matter to you. Go and tell them your life stories. Ask them about theirs. Ask them what their hopes and dreams are. Encourage them to share them. Find a way to connect and keep that alive, because we are in so difficult times that hope might be the only thing that keeps people going. Dreams might seem like a very distant place right now, because for some of us it's just about survival. But without hope, there is no survival. That's what got me through after Calum's death, because that was a huge loss. And I knew that I needed to keep the hope alive for me. I needed to fan those flames, and I needed to have something that was going to keep me striving forward. For me, initially, it was about being happy, being happy as a family, and for him to see us being happy as a family. We've done that. We did that. I didn't know how it was going to happen. So for those of you who are sitting there just now and who might have lost people, who might be grieving and struggling, believe me, I know how that feels. I know how dark and difficult that feels. But there is hope too. There's hope, connecting. And I feel so much for you just now if you're self-isolating, because we were surrounded by people who supported us and encouraged us and loved us, you know, in so many ways. The kindness that we experienced was above and beyond what I could ever have hoped. And there you go, again, hoped for. So this has maybe turned out to be a wee bit longer video than I had planned. It's like I was saying, no change there then. You know, I do like to blather. But so have hope, stay connected, tell people that you love them, share your stories, ask about theirs, ask about their hopes, their dreams, share kindness wherever you can, you know, just write it down, you know, come and take part. We've got a creative writing challenge. If you want to just come and join that, it's free. Come and take part. If you want to have a chat, if you want to have a conversation just about anything that I've said, you know, then reach out. You can, you know, I'm going to be sharing this on our YouTube channel, our social media, and whatever else. You can find me on LinkedIn. If you know, send me a direct message or whatever, and we'll, you know, I'm happy to have a cuppa with you. My other love is tea, and actually don't have a cup sitting beside me just now, which is really unusual. You know, I'm happy to have a conversation with you too. But you know, reach out to those that need it. You do matter. Your lives matter. And you know, sharing it with the world leaves your imprint, leaves your legacy. Go and check out some of the books I've mentioned. Just because it's not just about that. All the books that we have, every single one, whether it's a fictional story where somebody shared their imagination, or it's a memoir, or it's their gifts and their experiences that they're sharing with the world, or their hobbies or their fascinations or whatever it is. Have a look on our website, indieauthorsworld.com. Have a look at the books on there. Behind every book is a real person's story. So that's it. You know, just love each other, be kind, stay safe, and thank you to each and every one of you who are helping us to survive and here too. You know, so those, to our NHS workers, to our carers, to the people that are collecting our rubbish, to the people that are filling the shops and working in there, that are stacking the shelves, that are delivering stuff, the people who are printing, are still working and printing books, you know, to the folk who are working from home trying to keep their businesses running, to all my business colleagues and stuff out there that we connected with the other day, thank you. Thank you. Because each and every one of you matter. And to everyone who's stepping up and stepping out, and, you know, Tom walking his 100 lengths of his garden, and, you know, there is so much good out there. There are so many good stories, you know, so connect with those. But thank you. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to the NHS. You know, thank you to my family for being here and helping support me while I'm sometimes going slightly mad. And to all my friends, I love you all. Take care, stay safe, and just be kind. Bye.